About 10 years ago, I was working on a piece on water, and I interviewed an Enron executive. Remember Enron, the company that did a hell of a job on California? Ran up your energy costs, had the artificial shortages, the famous Grandma Millie, we're screwing Grandma Millie. Company's out of business, nobody ever went to jail, but you remember them. I ran into an Enron executive somewhere, I forget where it was in the plains, and they were buying up water rights, and they were going around and buying up these little municipal water rights. And I asked this guy, I said, Enron, you guys are in the oil and gas game. You're the energy manipulators. What the hell are you doing buying water rights in Bunglehole, Kansas? And the guy, I'll never forget this, he said to me, he said, water, this is like 1998, he said, water is going to be to the next century what oil was to this century. And so that certainly had an effect on me. I've since learned in the course of researching the Dust Bowl story about the Ogallala Aquifer, which is an area the size of the Great Lakes that lies just underneath the high plains, and it's water that took centuries and centuries to get there, and we are mining it at a totally unsustainable rate. The question of water is really about agriculture, because ag is the biggest user of water. The West was built as a giant scheme of artificial plumbing. You know, LA would be a desert. You know the story. I was in Arizona last week, and it's still amazing to fly in and look at the Central Arizona Canal, veins carrying water from the Colorado River down to the two places that would not exist, Tucson and Phoenix. Tucson probably would exist. Phoenix certainly wouldn't. I think the water question is not as complicated as people think. It's a matter of taking some single agriculture users who use so much and reorienting it. And this has been the struggle in the San Joaquin and the Sacramento as well, for wildlife and for other uses. I think it's within our time a solvable problem, but I also think it's a finite resource. And again, if I can put this in a historical perspective, I think that most of the big things that we preserve, Teddy Roosevelt went into the bottom of the Grand Canyon in 1906. It's a very ballsy thing for him to do, and he said, leave it as it is. The ages have been at work on it. Man can only screw it up, although he didn't say screw it up. There were mines all up and down the Grand Canyon. So Roosevelt preserved the big pieces under this idea that these are our Gothic cathedrals. These are our Botticelli paintings. These are our masterpieces. We don't need to be like Europe. We have these things, and it's part of our land. That was his almost chauvinistic, American chauvinistic way of selling public lands and national parks. That was 100 years ago. The public lands movement is 110 plus years old. We did preserve the Mount Rainiers, the Yosemites, the Grand Canyons. The phase we're in right now, although it's so important to preserve, the whole thrust of my talk was trying to get at, this open space just at the edge of the city, the phase we're in is the restoration phase. Can we restore what we screwed up? So you look at the long, comical punchline of the LA River, this basically concrete ditch that runs through the center of LA. Well, I mean, you can ride a kayak down there and see birds now. There are parts of it that are a living river, again, because of groups like the Nature Conservancy and other parts. I look at the Dust Bowl area, where I spent a lot of time, land, the first part of the United States to be utterly destroyed by other human beings. We changed the climate. We took an area the size of Pennsylvania and completely destroyed it. We stripped off the topsoil. We made it a dead land. It was a broken ecology. Nothing lived but grasshoppers. We just completely destroyed it. And I looked at the effort started by Franklin Roosevelt to put grass back into the grassland that had been destroyed. And so today you have 16 million acres that form the national grasslands. Certainly it's been a mixed picture. So much of the old Dust Bowl area is still just high dunes, because they stripped away this soil that it took centuries to develop. But the point I'm trying to make is that we could do restoration. It does apply to landscapes that have seemingly been lost.